Honey Sound Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Bilko Media Network.
Yeah, man. Let's do it to it. Aliens.
Aliens attack.
Aliens.
I don't know the theme for Aliens, so I have nothing to
I know the theme.
intro with.
It's just insert the X-Files theme over me singing it. That's the theme.
I know E.T. I can do that one.
You could do E.T. What's E.T.? Go do it.
It's like do 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 or something like that. I don't know.
My God, is that
It's
the
been a
John
while.
Williams Orchestra I hear?
That it is. I invited him over just for this.
Oh, well, you should shake his hand. Aliens. They are maybe green, maybe gray,
Maybe blue.
maybe blue. Yes, maybe 12 foot tall, maybe
Maybe made of
carbon fiber or whatever.
I was
it
gonna say carbon, but yeah. Maybe we're all just in a computer simulation and there are no
There we
aliens.
go.
Who
There we
knows?
go. Wait a minute. We've done that episode. Link in the description. So
It's a plug.
it's a plug. That's right. No, so aliens, and I actually am going to do a plug for another guy's YouTube channel. There's a guy named Isaac Arthur who does a really good job of like going through what's called the Fermi paradox, which is this it was this statement by Enrico Fermi, I think in the 30s, and he said like, okay, so if the universe is full of all these stars, and each star has some number of planets, and some number of planets have some number of percent chance of housing life, da 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 da, why isn't the universe full of radio signals that we can hear from them? Where are their communications?
Right.
And it's the Fermi paradox, because the universe is so big.
Well, if you back it up a little bit, what's that famous number the British guy made up of determining how many planets support life? You know what I'm talking about? He came up with some equation in like the 30s, and it's along those same
Drake
lines.
equation, yes.
Yeah, maybe that sounds right.
That is
So
it.
that one, I mean, if you take all the known stars in like just our galaxy, not even the universe, but you like extrapolate it out and you put in conservative numbers that are just so small that you're like, this won't work. But you end up getting like 100 million like sizable planets that can support life in any given galaxy or something like that. I'm making it up,
Yes.
but the point is there should be life out there if we are here.
Yes. And the Fermi paradox is just the word.
It takes that one step farther,
Right.
saying there should be evidence of
Yes.
these from the radio signals and such. Because we've been sending out radio signals since like the 20s, I guess.
Yes.
They haven't gotten very far, but in theory, they should go on for almost ever.
Yes. And also it would be, with our current and this is the giant asterisk going under all of this, is with our current understanding of the universe. Okay, so just remember that whenever we're talking about everything, right? But what we currently understand the universe, it is impossible to hide a multi-stellar civilization. Okay, or at least it's very hard to do that, and it's certain
in this galaxy, I would think.
Yeah, and it's also very hard to hide, say, a very advanced civilization, because what we should be seeing is we should see a region of stars that are darker or in some way dimmed than relative to another star patch near it. And as far as I know, we haven't found anything like that. What that would indicate is that basically if you're something like us, you're going to use the cheapest, freest source of energy around, which is stars. All right, stellar output, photons, electrons, all this stuff coming out of stars. You're going to use that as an energy source for whatever you're trying to do. And there doesn't seem to be anything, like in terms of a region of the sky where we have seen that.
Well, I think what you're getting at is these alien races would eventually come up with a Dyson sphere.
Yes, or a Dyson swarm, or some sort of
Or something, yeah,
some sort of mega structure around the stellar body that would block light, or at least be detectable.
Well, speaking of, I don't know if you've seen, but past couple of years or so, I keep seeing these Yahoo articles pop up about scientists discovering this one star that keeps dimming for no apparent reason. They can't explain why. And of course, one of the solutions is, it must be a Dyson sphere,
Yes.
but nobody can prove it one way or another, obviously. And there has yet to be, I don't think, an explanation for why this star is apparently dimming when it shouldn't.
Yes, and I don't know really anything specifically about that case. I have seen the same Yahoo articles and stuff as you. I trust those about as far as I could throw them.
I know, right?
I'm not an actual expert to talk to, but yeah, I mean, because the thing is that we've been stupidly, unintentionally putting out radio signals for forever, and
well, forever is not, like I said, we've only been doing it for about 100 years.
Right.
They haven't gotten very far in the galaxy,
no, they haven't.
Let alone the universe in that time frame.
Right.
But on the flip side, they should have been putting out radio signals, because you'd think that'd be one of the first primitive forms of technology other alien races would have developed.
I mean, it's literally figuring out that you need to make a big stick made out of iron, one of the most common elements in the entire friggin' universe, and then you got to run some electrons up and down it real fast. All right, like
right.
That's all you have to do. So if you have iron, you have electricity, you've basically got what you need to make radio, and it's very hard to see how stuff like that couldn't come about.
Right. And to go one step further of why they should be ahead of us, I like the explanation they used in Stargate, where I think Sam mentioned something about, we had the Dark Ages,
God.
and so we had 1,000 years worth of, stagnant technology where other people could have evolved past that and never stopped. Well, take it one step further with the dinosaur era. Like, what if the dinosaurs never existed and we just skipped all over that and went straight into primate domination, millions of years earlier? Well, why couldn't some other race do that?
Or what if Professor T-Rex wised up one day and decided to start pumping up about radio waves? I mean, yeah, you're right. And the absence of this sort of like
evidence, is kind of shocking.
It is kind of shocking. So basically, you fall into a couple categories, okay? And I'm just kind of gonna maybe like make them up off the top of my head, maybe.
Yep.
You can maybe help me fill in something that I forgot. But basically, you kind of come to three conclusions. One, they actually are here. They are among us, okay? And we're just not observant of them, okay? I guess this could range from anywhere from like Hillary Clinton is a lizard person to alien abduction to all this stuff, okay? So they are here. We're just unaware of them, okay? And this could also go into, well, what if like most life is just this like mass of low temperature carbon floating in interstellar space or something, like something that we couldn't detect or we wouldn't recognize as life.
The dark matter aliens.
Something, yes, exactly. Just like it's here and we're unaware of it. Or
they're on a different plane of existence.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, yes, exactly. They're the ancients. God, worst storyline branch ever. This is becoming like the Stargate review of it.
I know.
All right. Okay. So they're here and we're unaware of it. they just flat out don't exist, and we are the only intelligent, whatever beings in the entire universe, or they're out there, we just haven't found them yet, right? And I think that covers it, right?
Pretty much. I mean, I was gonna say they could have started us, but that's kind of along the lines of they're already here. We just don't know about them.
Okay, so elaborate on that.
I mean, you could take this in many directions, from creating the whole solar system to finding a dead planet but starting life on it, and take the Ron Popeil approach and set it and forget it, and either monitor us throughout or leave for millions of years and they'll come back one day like Independence Day.
Okay, all right.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, where did life come from, right? Well, maybe they planted the seed of all you see around us, and everything just evolved from that. And they kind of, if they are still here, maybe they did destroy the dinosaurs or something. I don't know. I'm just making this up as I go too.
Yeah, well, I think that in order to resolve why there is no life in the universe, like
that we can detect.
That we can detect. Yeah. Okay, so you've got to pick one of. I mean, that would be. So what you're talking about? That's like a fourth option, right?
It kind of goes under they are already here among us, but
okay,
it's a kind of a subset of that. I mean, you could also make the argument that they might have something on the edge of our solar system that blocks radio signals from entering or leaving or something. Who knows?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that would fall under. Yeah, that's falling under the category. But yeah, there are definitely I think that's the most exciting subcategory. Okay, which is which contains things like the lizard people are here. We're like a human zoo.
Yeah. We're their entertainment or a science experiment,
we're a science
or however you want to take it,
or something.
We're some kid's high school petri dish project.
Exactly. We're Lisa Simpson. I invented Lutherans.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's one of the clearer ways out of like why don't we see aliens? Because they don't want to be seen. They are intentionally hiding themselves. Because what we understand of like physics and if you have an interstellar or galactic civilization, it's been putting out like radio waves for a long time, or some sort of visible radiation, or not visible, but you know what I mean, some sort of radiation,
some sort of detectable something.
Exactly, some sort of signal, some sort of detectable signal. You'd be able to see it, you'd be able to find it, but that's not there. So one of the things that's obvious, is like, okay, so if that's not there, and given the age of the universe, we were already at like, I think, the second or third stellar cycle, generally, with most stars being remnants of other stars that exploded previously. I think that's the case. So, where are all the old guys, right? And
from like the first iteration of all that.
Yeah, from the first iteration of all that. Like, we should still be at least seeing that. Like, I mean, if there was an intergalactic empire in the galaxy 4 galaxies over, but it was like within the first, I mean, all the stars had formed into galaxies and then gone through this kind of like, I mean, I think I'm getting my cosmologies right. Like, galactic formation happened in sort of like these first generation of stars, and then those first generations get away to like a second and / third generation. So where we get all of our heavy elements from, because the first generation of stars doesn't have planets, okay, and it certainly doesn't have uranium or anything like that. Like, it doesn't have healthy, like heavy elements, because first generation of stars is just like, I've got hydrogen and maybe some helium in the universe, and that's all I have to work with. Okay, so like, you can't have like rocky planets like we're used to. All right, you might have, in early second generation stuff like maybe stuff like Jupiters and stuff, but like, where is that? Where is that, that first early civilization that was, like able to take over like a galaxy or something? What we imagine like being like a, like a Dune or a Star Wars or a, like a that kind of empire. Like, where was that? And how come we can't see that? And of course, the answer is that of course it's all around us, but there's this giant shield around the solar system that protects us, and we. So the thing about that, okay, let's deconstruct that.
Well, do we? Let's look at that a little bit. I mean, do we even know our radio signals will be intelligible several light years from Earth? Like, how do we know they don't degrade?
Okay, so they will degrade according to the square law, inverse square law. Okay, yeah, they'll degrade according to that, of course. But detecting radio signals, if you're ever going to get to the point where you can do like space warfare properly, you're going to be able to detect very, very small amounts of radiation from very, very far away. And if you're going to have if you're anything like human beings, and that's another caveat, is what if they're just so strange that they don't act like us at all? They're totally incomprehensible. But if they're anything like human beings,
or what if that's static when we turn on our radio dial, is not static to them, but that's their Fifth Symphony Orchestra.
Exactly. What if the cosmic brain, at the center of the black hole is really in, like a super old civilization or whatever, like, yeah, I mean,
right.
You're never going to be able to figure that out. But being in a cosmic zoo, right, which is what we're talking about, right, requires intentionality. It assumes an importantness about the human civilization, okay, about the human species, because obviously we don't put all animals in zoos. There's no particular zoo for flies, or not all of them are in zoos. Not all of them are studied. We don't have a particular interest in everything. So why should this galactic hyperspace civilization? Why should it have an interest in us? And that's something that I can't really figure out.
Answer? Yeah.
It's like what is so special? It's a directly contradictory opinion to. It's on the same level of self-importance as one of the other answers outside of this category, which is we're just so damn special and we are the only people to ever, and that's it. Like, there are no aliens, there never were any aliens, we alone are the
or some kind of fluke of
right.
nature.
And to subscribe to the zoo hypothesis, like, they both share a same sense of human self-importance, which I think is a dangerous bias to, the universe doesn't really care any one way or another about humanity. Okay.
No.
So I'm sure the, if we're looking for that religious YouTube market, this is not going to play well with that.
Well, I was gonna say too. In all of this, you kind of assume that there will be this giant galactic empire as well. But how do we know that just the basic physical properties of the universe won't allow that to ever happen? To have that dominant of a civilization, maybe we are all just stuck on our little bitty planet, and that's all we'll ever get.
And that does really make sense if you consider light speed like a fundamental barrier. That if you
right.
have mass, you cannot get above this speed. That makes interstellar travel hard, but not
impossible, but hard. It's gonna take a long time.
It would be within a very close cluster, relatively speaking, close cluster of stars. you could have an interstellar empire, but I'm not sure about an intergalactic empire. But one of the key
That's
things
just
here is if
exponentially
you
harder.
have what it takes to make an interstellar, you also have what it takes to make an intergalactic. It's not going to be ruled probably from one central hierarchy or whatever, but at least what you are, your species, your if you reproduce whatever that is, will be able to send something along, and to another region of stars, and you
Hmm.
know
But now you're talking about timing, right? I mean, the universe has only been around for what, 12 billion years, which isn't really that long of a time. And what our Earth, our sun alone is what, something billion years in?
Okay, so let's go with what we know. All right, time for some math, Bill. Okay, let's do this. So let's just say that you are in charge of, you are made Minister of Galactic Colonization, on the new Earth. Okay, once you've decided to take dictatorial control of the entire world, you have the entire world's resources at your disposal. What we have now, could we do it? Right? Like in that, could you tell a bunch of people that, like, we're gonna launch you with chemical rockets, or maybe like set up an interstellar, highway powered by lasers, beam from planets and whatever. The fastest thing I know that could get to Alpha Centauri, is like this hypothetical idea of a chip satellite, which you could accelerate to the 10% of speed of light by just having a giant solar sail, blast it with microwaves from like ground based thing. Okay,
Uh-huh.
that's going to accelerate it up to like 10% of the speed of light, and it's going to do a flyby. Okay, it would actually be very, very hard for
People to get out
people to
there?
get out there, but let's say even more. Okay, let's say, Bill, that you have developed Joker gas or something. So you have like mind control powers, or they're in a cult that worships you as a leader and will only do as you say. All right. Let's just say that we have them breed on board the spaceship, and it's just this multi-generational arc that gets flung out into nowhere. The Ulysses probe, I think, like moves at like the fastest man-made object, moved at whatever. Let's just say you can get 10% of light speed on this ship. Okay.
Okay, I can
All
buy that.
right. So it takes you, let's say, 10 years to get to Alpha Centauri, and then populate. Because if you can build an ark in space and live for generations in space, you can live in space. Period. Okay.
Right. Yep.
You're
Yep.
just looking for some place to call home, maybe that has a sun. So if you can do that in about, let's just say, let's give you a little bit of time to slow down or whatever. Let's just say it takes you 50 years to get 4 light years away. So that's a couple generations, and then you're on to the next star. Okay, so you're what is it, Barnard star, I think, 10 light years away. Okay, so that's going to take you 60 or 70 more years. You jump to the next one, and you've got, so like, even within human, multi-generational, of course, but within a couple of human lifetimes, I mean, you've got to think of these ships maybe as like states. Like, we just think of the United States of America, we would just think of this as like, the ship of America or whatever. You just launch all 300 million Americans into space in this giant thing, and I think you could reproduce civilization quite quickly, and I think you could.
Yeah, if you can sustain the resources you need.
Yeah, if you can do that. But I don't think that even with today, that's a technological limitation, right? Like, if you,
I think it's a resource limitation.
yeah, maybe it's
Like, how much power do you need to get that, United States ship going, and how much water do you need? You need to drain all of the lakes
Yeah.
and,
But you
use up every resource of Earth.
but you could do it, right?
So you could do it, I guess.
Right? I mean, you can power entire cities if you just build a solar farm big enough and a battery bank big enough. But it's just not economically feasible to do it. But you can dig enough lithium out of the earth, and you can build a solar farm big enough to do it.
Right.
So
Right.
so it's within the realm of possibility, right, to do something like this,
Uh-huh.
and it wouldn't take more than, 1,000 years. Like, if that's all you cared about, if you were just driven by this, like, nobody cared about anything else. We just got to get to Barnard Star and make babies there. Like, and that's the only thing that you and everything around you cared about, which, to be honest, should be the trait that we see in a pan-stellar giant galactic civilization. You should be able to get quite far in a relatively short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
So,
But can you detect that from galaxies away?
well, Andromeda is the closest one to us, and it's 200 million light years away. So we're really talking about, like, mid-dinosaur, right? I mean, there's still life. It's just not particularly intelligent. So if Professor T-Rex and Andromeda,
Yep.
rubbed two sticks together and figured out how to make fire, and then, his descendants figure out how to make spaceships, like, we should be able to see that in Andromeda at least, right? In a parallel Earth following the exact same time frame as our Earth, because the Earth is 5 billion years old, okay, and Andromeda's 200 million is 0.2 billion light years away. So,
Yeah.
so, like, you could do it, you could have it happen, and Andromeda's a whole other galaxy, right? So Andromeda is, like, if you're comparing, like, we'll say maybe there's only one intelligent civilization per galaxy. Well, we should be able to see it, right, from our own galaxy. Certainly, it's not too far away.
See what though? That's what are you detecting here?
Well,
You just zoom in really far and wave to the people? Like, I don't under.
Well, okay, so, like, yeah, let's actually talk about, well, how do we detect things far away? All right, and the answer, if they're not stars, we don't.
Right. So how do you
We
detect
do
a global
know, like, how
galactic
far
civilization?
stars are away.
Yeah.
And we know in general,
Which is another
what
thing I
stars
don't
are
really
made
understand
of.
how they know.
So
Yep.
those are two things that we for sure know.
Assuming all the other stars act like our own.
But you're really looking for radio waves. You're really looking for, or some other type of, like, obviously artificial signal that kind of cuts through the static of the general, like, regular old radio waves that stars are blasting out. Some sort of intelligence to it. Which, by the way, is why people got so excited about pulsars back in the day, because they thought that they were
Morse code or
yeah.
something.
But you're looking for something like that. So one of the problems is that it's, in terms of what you're dealing with the background, it's going to be so dim by virtue of the inverse square law that you're going to need a lot of resources to detect it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a little more than what we have right now, which is basically like the Arecibo dish and the Very Large Array and all these other sort of radio telescopes that we have. Because you can imagine, right, if something, it doesn't matter where it is in the Andromeda Galaxy, if something originates from the Andromeda Galaxy, if you point your telescope at that, because the radio waves are expanding in a giant sphere, right? You're going to pick up on you point at the Andromeda Galaxy. It doesn't matter where it's coming from, the Andromeda Galaxy. Same thing goes for even more distant galaxies. The point source becomes finer and finer as it goes farther and farther away. Now, so you're like, okay, we're pointing the radio beacon at the or the radio thing. So are we just? Is it just not strong enough to pick up a signal? I mean, maybe. I don't really know too much about what how do you isolate different radio waves from it could be a problem. You're just getting a signal drowned out by noise, but I would think you'd be able to maybe figure that out. I would hope. Otherwise, SETI is kind of an existential joke. Right. I mean, there's no reason to it. But
well, I mean, you're gonna make the argument too that we're early. Like, they could have sent out a radio wave, started first sending out radio waves 100 million years ago, but it's only halfway to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it would take even farther for other galaxies to reach us. So, I'd be shocked if we are the only thing in the universe that has life on it. But to your point of lack of evidence of other civilizations and whatnot, I mean, I think we might be just one of the first ones to emerge from it all.
Right. I mean,
and even if there are far more advanced civilizations out there, they're so far away that their evidence hasn't hit us yet.
Yes, I mean, you can. I think that in general, that is one of the, I guess, better hypotheses is that you are just sort of, you are one of the original or like the first, or it comes back down to being like, okay, so we're a little special in terms of like we're one of the firsts, which kind of is playing both sides. It's like saying, well,
yeah,
oh, we're also special. We're special in a very specific way. I think I wonder why you haven't seen anything by now. Might be due to the fact that we utilize maybe radically different communication from what is maybe normal, in a way that, like, I mean, people, like, okay, so what if they don't communicate by
sound?
Right, by sound, or or I mean, not really sound, but by electromagnetic radiation, which is what we set up to detect,
Right.
If there's some sort of like way that like space whales communicate telepathically, well, they could be everywhere, but we don't know, So I wonder about these things, because it does seem odd. It really does seem odd.
But there's nothing else.
Yes, there is something that I read recently, though, that actually might, and I'm remembering this like 35 minutes in, but that actually may kind of put a fine point on the idea that we are special, though, and that is that the star system that we have, which is a solitary star system surrounded by a multitude of planets, the gas giants being relatively very far away from the sun, might be something of a rarity, and most stars are either. God, what was that?
You can hear me now, right?
Yeah, you just like turned into like.
Really?
Yeah. Did you hear that? Did Atlanta get nuked? Like, I mean.
I heard that part. I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, not that I know of.
Anyway, Okay,
Because I can hear you just fine, so I don't know what that
I'm
was
gonna
about.
stand a bit closer to the Wi-Fi.
You know what it is? I think we're on to the
Yes,
aliens
I
overwatching us,
think
and they want
so
to
too.
shut us
I
down.
think so too. I think so too. Um, Bill, I feel like this got a little so I don't know. I got a little too intellectual, and I wanna ask you, do aliens walk among us?
Do they walk among us? I would like to say technically no,
Uh,
but I would not be surprised if there's some sort of paradox going on here where man eventually invents time travel, goes back in time, realizes that life did not spontaneously start, and they felt like they had to prime the pump, if you will. So that they've been ourselves in the future have been monitoring us throughout. And so while they're not aliens, because I understand the complexity of distance, you know,
mhm.
but I can see if there was a time where they being us in the future are monitoring us. We did not become that giant galactic civilization that all the main sci-fi movies have us believe, but they you know are us. If that makes any sense, I'd believe that over aliens among us.
Do you think that humans might evolve into something so strange they could be considered aliens, right? I mean, like
Well, that's the little gray men, right?
Mhm.
Like that's our future evolution right there.
Yeah, so well, is that what people really think about little gray men?
No, but that's what I think about them.
Oh, okay. So, if if we develop time travel and start ourselves, isn't that a paradox?
That's what I said. There's a paradox going on here.
Uh,
But I'd believe that more than aliens are here already. What's your take?
it's very hard for me to think that they could blend in successfully among us and do that without being enough like us to just kind of just want to conquer Earth. I mean,
Right. Like I don't understand the secrecy about it, right? Like that's why I find all this hard to believe, overall is because why keep it a secret? Like just reveal yourselves if you're here.
because it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, if you can travel from star to star, you can wipe out all life on Earth very easily. It like if you have an engine and an asteroid, you can wipe out Earth like very easily. You know, you could do that almost with what we have today. Oh, but there's we're now 40 minutes into it or whatever. There's I think another answer to the Fermi paradox, right, which is the great filter. Civilizations do never progress
Past a certain
past a
point.
certain point. They do exist, life does exist everywhere, but life is so inherently conflictive or whatever that it wipes itself out before it ever gets to interstellar travel.
And I can believe that.
Which, when you think about it, I mean, it does make sense, because if you figured out how to develop like rocketry, if you're parallel Earth and you figure out how to develop rocketry, because rocketry is the beginning of like when you're able to talk about space as like a place where humans can like be, because before that, I mean, you're talking about like
Yeah.
shooting people out of a cannon towards the moon,
Right.
but like rocketry makes it really, we've only had like 50 years of that, and it's also corresponded with the ability to deliver nuclear bombs to any place on the planet for that 50 years. So like
Mhm.
every roll of the dice with like the every new missile or every new rocket that's put out there. All of that kind of beyond low Earth orbit stuff is only relatively very recent, and really you only need access to low orbit to wipe out your planet. You need to figure out how to harness fission and rocketry to set yourself everything on your planet back to the Stone Age.
Mm-hmm.
And we're about only 60 or 70 years into that, which is not a long time. So it could be that if things like us are common, all right, we're talking about the Star Trek universe, which has human beings with like 4 brow ridges and pointy ears, but basically maybe they're all like a certain way. Low-key racism.
Humanoid is what you're getting at.
They're all generally the same as humans. They have 10 fingers and 10 toes. In a planet that's like Earth, you could really see, even in like, the alternate universe where the Roman Empire survives, you could see that Roman Empire launching a bunch of nukes and just wiping out the entire world, no matter how else anything.
Like China,
right.
Yeah.
Or yes, exactly.
I think it's almost inevitable that everybody has a World War II moment in their development.
Yes. Well, I mean,
maybe. And maybe we're one of the extreme few who actually make it past that and into some seeable future.
I mean, you talk about this like it's ended. Right?
No, we certainly are. What I'm saying is we might be one of the few who have made it 70 years into that. Where many people probably just destroy themselves right from the get-go because they don't know what they're doing.
Right. I don't know. It's an interesting counterfactual to think of, of course, our favorite universe, the Man in the High Castle, where it's like Nazi Germany gets the nuke, and then, we're just going to wipe out everything that isn't us.
Yep.
To take this back to where we really were all along, in Stargate, when the replicators like take over stuff, they're not particularly intelligent. They're just like really unkillable, and they expand. And anything that's, you should see something like that at least, like just a virus that like
an unstoppable thing that somebody started. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It could be, it could be just like the replicators, right? There's this planet, some dude invents this girl who falls in love with Daniel Jackson, and we'll just turn this into a Stargate review, let's
bring out all the stories.
Exactly.
They're all irrelevant somehow.
Yes. Something, all right. Like, I mean, you'd think that you'd at least see that.
I think we just need to visit these planets and check. Start looking under some rocks.
I think so too. So that sequences us into life in the solar system. Do you think that there's like microbial life at the bottom of the oceans of Europa or something?
I think it makes sense. Right? I mean, we've been finding all kinds of, what do they call them? Hyperphiles or whatever, like an Extremophiles, there you go. Which we didn't think existed like 20 years ago. We thought there's no way life could survive that. But as Jurassic Park states, life will find a way. So I think it all comes down to, how does life get going from the beginning? To go back to my point, like, is life a natural phenomenon, or is it have to be started by something? But then, you run into a paradox where did that life come from? Wrap it all the way down. So I think that's the question, is how does life start from the beginning?
Well,
is it a natural thing and can occur naturally given certain circumstances?
Well, my question to you is, if it doesn't happen naturally, how does it happen?
Well, that's my paradox theory of we started ourselves. Or some other alien race out there, started us in our little neck of the
Right,
woods.
but then
But,
who
what
starts
started
who
them?
starts them?
So, where did they come from? And I don't know. Given our natural world, I sure can't make life appear in a petri dish out of nothing. So nobody else has been able to either. So how do you explain all of that?
Well, what do you think? Okay, so I've sometimes thought that I've sometimes wondered this. What do you think if it's just like a planet full? Have you heard of tardigrades?
No, I don't think so.
Tardigrades are animals that can survive like I think it's something ridiculous like 500 gray of radiation, stuff that would just kill everything. Everything would kill your bone dead.
Uh-huh.
It would just yeah. That would melt you. Um, it can survive in a vacuum. It can survive in like a pile of salt. I think like it's super halide. Shit, let me just look it up. Tardigrade.
This is a microbe?
It's a microscopic animal.
Animal.
Yes.
Animal?
Yes.
Like a little deer prancing around?
Yes. Go look up tardigrade right now.
Hey, they're coming after you. I just opened the website, or Yahoo, right? That's my homepage, and it says pilots report close encounters with UFO over Arizona.
Ah! Bwah!
Put on your tin hat or aluminum hat.
So what do you think about displays of aliens in media? What, because we have lots of sci-fi, lots of aliens. What's going on with the aliens that we see? Why are they the way they are?
Well, I think there seems to be two forms of aliens. There's the humanoid kind, right? Your little gray men stereotype.
Right.
That are either all cute and cuddly and this and that, but and then you also have the big scary guys who have claws and teeth, and there doesn't seem to be much in between that.
Claws and yeah. Well, I mean, there's never really, I think, a depiction of what I would consider like really alien. Like, I think like Arrival had like some really aliens, and I think that
I don't think I saw that.
Contact, which is kind of like what Arrival was going for, I think. Contact is very aliens. But like 2001 has very aliens. I mean, but in most depictions, like what you describe, right? It's like either monsters or basically
cute and cuddly,
but like either small or gray, or they're Wookiees, or
Yeah.
But it's like it's a guy in a suit. It's a guy in a suit, or it's a monster, which sometimes is also a guy in a suit.
Right, and if you think about it, and maybe this is just our own naive selves, little here on Earth is all we know. To me, it's like you almost have to have aliens that can at least do interstellar time travel or interstellar travel be almost humanoid, because you need to pick up things. So you need like hands, right? And you need to be able to get around. And maybe you can do that on all fours, but
Well, what if you're an octopus alien, right? I mean, you'd have a giant ship made of water or something, and
yeah,
and you would use your tentacles. Maybe you're a flying alien.
But how do you start civilization as an octopus? Like, the reason humans took off is because we invented fire, and that just took off from there.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you have like iron ships and all kinds of hardened, manipulated elements to form your structures if you're a squid?
I don't know.
Is that even doable without fire? Can you even have civilization without fire? And electricity and stuff we just take for granted.
I guess the question that you're asking is, can we have natural spaceships, right? Because that's what you need if you were an octopus under the sea.
Well, that's what a planet is, right? It's just the thing in space floating around that doesn't have any external input.
Mhm.
And if it can sustain life, that's a spaceship.
Mhm. But going back to tardigrades, like, do you think that like that's like a viable way of like life to spread is like a tardigrade on an asteroid dormant?
Oh yeah. I've heard that, like, that's how we got started, is life came from some other galaxy and crashed into Earth, and it started us. That goes back to the whole theory of it's not a natural phenomenon, right? Something else started us, and we're just descendants of another alien race from somewhere
Mhm.
else. Microbes from that world got on some rock and they blew themselves up from a nuclear war, and we floated around for 300 million years before landing here.
So one thing I think about the portrayal of aliens in media
Aliens, yeah.
is that it's so interesting because I can't think of a single portrayal of aliens that comes to you with like no degree of intentionality. Like,
like in the movies?
right. I mean, I guess you kind of have to go back to like the bug alien in the 50s, like the giant cock. But even then, that's not an alien thing. That's just like a monster. So like, like aliens in media, like have a degree of an intentionality to them.
Well, they almost have to. Otherwise, why would they be here?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to make the journey here for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're just out for a stroll one day and they come across our planet.
Yeah.
And even if that's true, there would be a sense of curiosity, I would think. Like, who are these people? What is their life like? How did they evolve differently from us,
I actually do know of one good alien thing. Do you ever play a video game? This video game is based on a book. The video game is called Stalker, and the book is I never read either, but I read about both of them. But the idea is that like this alien ship passed through the center of the Earth, just kind of willy-nilly, and then just left these really weird things behind, as in the place that it intersected the Earth's surface. Like like all these temporal portals and like this green goo that eats you.
Oh, you mean like that one Stargate episode where they like crossed planes and there was that other alien things that like.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh my God, it is. Stargate's done everything.
So it was like that then, right?
Yeah. Basically. Or an episode of Farscape, that I remember, which is another show you need to watch, by the way. That, I think, has the best aliens in them, but sort of like at the level of Star Wars,
Yeah.
Well, Shasta should have been home by now.
She was abducted.
Let's kind of
right.
Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
We're going long. We're going rambly. If this one doesn't get put up on YouTube, I'll be okay.
All right. So, let's sum it all up. Do you think they are out there in the universe?
Yes.
Whether in this galaxy or beyond.
Yes.
I would have to agree. I mean, we are here. So how, either by fluke or by purpose, there's got to be something else out there. There's got to be.
Yep.
And that's how we end.
Strong ending.
Strong ending, yes. One of our best.
This has been a presentation of Honey Sound Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Bilko Media Network.